Hi, this is Ms. McClellan here to go over IM2 5.1 checkpoint practice. All right, number one says solve each quadratic equation by factoring using the zero product property. Show all of your work. The answer should be an exact form. Exact form just means that, for example, if you had 7 over 3, you could write that as 7 over 3 or 1.3 repeating. Both of those are technically exact, but there will be situations in the future where you won't be able to represent a number in decimal format. And we'll talk about that later on. But for now, we can actually cross this out. That's going to come up in section 5.2. All right, so we'll just get going. To solve these, I'm going to factor them and then apply the zero product property. First one, I have x squared minus 2x minus 35. I can do this with a box. X squared goes here, minus 35 goes here. On top, I have negative 35x squared. On the bottom, I have negative 2x. I need two numbers that multiply to negative 35x squared, negative 35, and add to negative 2. That will be negative 7 and positive 5. I'm going to put an X on those because they're going in my box. I find the outside of my box. I write this as a product equaling 0, x minus 7 times x plus 5, and I get my answer is x equals positive 7 or negative 5. Quickly, to show why one of those turned into their answers, I'll set 0 equal to x plus 5, subtract 5 from both sides, and I get negative 5 equals x, and I did the same to 7. All right, part B. This only has two terms. Now I could solve it by adding 0 at the end, making this x squared minus 4x plus 0, and then using my diamond and box, but I notice these two terms have a common factor, which is x. So I'll rewrite this right now as x times x minus 4 equals 0. Right away, I see that x has to be either 0 or x minus 4 has to be 0, in which case the final answers will be x equals 0 or positive 4. Positive 4 because 4 minus 4 makes that true. Next problem. This is the first one where I really need the box. So I need to make sure that both sides of my equation are set equal to 0. So I have 2x squared plus x minus 15 equals 0. And then I factor using my box, 2x squared on the left upper part, negative 15 on the bottom right. Negative 30 x squared right here, positive x, and I have two numbers that multiply to 30 and add to 1. Well, that's going to be negative 6x squared and positive 5x. Sorry, I said negative 6x squared, but it's just negative 6. I put them in my box, and I find the outside. 2x, x, negative 3, and 5. I have x minus 3 times 2x plus 5 equals 0, giving me the answers x plus x equals 3 and negative 5 halves. Again, I need to make sure, this is part D now, that my equation is equaling 0. So I have 3x squared plus 4x minus 7 equals 0. And I use my box. 3x squared and minus 7. I need to multiply to negative 21x squared and add to 4x. That'll be positive 7x and negative 3x. Okay, greatest common factor of my top row is x. X times 3x is 3x squared. X times 7 is 7x. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. I get x minus 1 times 3x plus 7 equals 0. giving me my final answer of x equals 1 and -7/3. Very good. Next problem. Now I'm graphing, so I need to draw a complete graph for the function y equals x squared plus 8x plus 15. Show the calculations that lead to my answers. So in order to find my x-intercepts, I need to factor and apply the zero product property. I have x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. I'm setting it equal to 0 because I want to make y 0, because when I'm on my x-axis, y equals 0. All right, now I'm going to factor. I have x squared here, 15 here, 15x squared, 8x, 3x, 5x. 3x, 5x, x plus 3, x plus 5. X plus 3 times x plus 5 equals 0. Gets me the answers, -5 and -3 for x. Now notice, this says to write as ordered pairs. That's because I'm going to place these on my graph, and locations on graphs come in two parts, an x and a y part. So -3 is the x part and 0 is the y part. And -5 is the x part and 0 is the y part. It's different than up here because up here I didn't have functions. I just had equations with one variable. So when I solve an equation with one variable, the answer is what that variable needs to be. Here, x is either 7 or -5. That's different than when I'm finding a x-intercept, in that even though the equation looks the same when I plug 0 in for y, I always have to remember y is 0, and that should show up in my answer. Okay, the line of symmetry, going to find that by going exactly between my intercepts. So my intercepts are at -3, 0, -5, 0, and -3, 0. And the line of symmetry is between those points at x equals -4. You could find this a couple of different ways. I found it from my graph by going exactly between the intercepts. Another way you could find it is with the method of -b/2a, in which case you take your b term and you divide it and you make it negative, so this becomes -8/2a. My a term here, even though you can't see it, is a 1. 2 times 1, that equals -4, and that's how I could get my vertex with -b/2a. Either method is fine. All right. To get my vertex, I know my vertex has to be in the middle of my parabola, and I know the x part of my vertex has to be here at -4. So I have -4, comma, and I just have to figure out what y is. And I can do that using my equation. Anytime I have an equation, I can use it to find a y value when given an x value. Here, my x value is -4, so I find this missing piece by doing -4 squared plus 8 times -4 plus 15, which is 16 minus 32 plus 15. Merge that all together, you get -1. Meaning my vertex is at the point -4, comma, -1. Okay, now the y-intercept is an ordered pair. You can get your y-intercept by knowing that anytime I have my y-intercept, I'm 0, x is 0 because I'm on the y-axis. And then I use the same method as I did for the vertex. I plug in 0 for x, because that's what x is. 0 squared plus 8 times 0 plus 15. I got my equation here, my x value here. It results in a y value of +15. You might say to me, Miss McClellan, that doesn't fit on the graph. Well, that's true. Estimate. It's about there. Okay, everybody, now make sure you connect with a smooth curve. I don't want to see any pointy graphs. The pointy graph is not correct because parabolas are smooth. All right, next problem. Write an equation that represents the table below. Show your work. Write your answer in standard form. Okay. So I start with my x-intercepts. I just want to make sure I take my x-intercepts and I go backwards. So if I were to get an x-intercept of -2, that would be from having factored form of x plus 2. If I were to get an x-intercept of +3, that would be from having a factored form of x minus 3. You would think that this is done, but sometimes it's not. You have to check and see if this value in front of your factors is in fact 1 or not. And I can do that by plugging in any third point. I will plug in the point 4,6 because that seems to be what's most popular with students. So I make 6y and 4x. So 6 equals a. 4 plus 2 times 4, because that's what x is, minus 3. And then I simplify and solve. So 6 equals, I'm using PEMDAS. Parentheses first, a times 6 times 1. 6 and 1. 4 plus 2 is 6. 4 minus 3 is 1. That becomes 6 equals a times 6. In order to get a alone, I'm going to divide both sides by 6. And that gets me that a equals 1. I'm almost done. I have my equation y equals 1 times x plus 2 times x minus 3. But it says that to write your final answer in standard form, so I'm going to make sure to make this into standard form, which simply means I need to multiply out of factored form into standard form. This should have been a 2, sorry. 2x negative 6. And that gets me y equals 1 times x squared minus x minus 6. You don't really have to write this 1 here because 1 times anything is itself, but I'm doing this so that I have this last step shown in case a doesn't happen to be 1. Anyway, this becomes y equals x squared minus x minus 6 because I distributed the 1 into my equation. Okay, last problem. Damien was trying to write the standard form equation of the quadratic graph below, but made an error. Complete each prompt. Okay, so where does Jamie's error start? I actually see 2 errors here. The first error that I see is that these x-intercepts would have resulted in this needing to be -3 and -7. The other error I see is that Jamie skipped the step where she puts an a in the front and figures out what a has to equal. So I see 2 errors. They both start in step 1. The error is she forgot. I don't know why I'm assuming Jamie is a girl. The error is, I don't know if Jamie's a girl. So they forgot to switch the signs. Talking about that right there. And they forgot to include a. Jamie can fix it by including a and switching signs. So step 1 should have given her this equation, this function, y equals a, x minus 3, x minus 7. And then she would finish. Okay, I hope this is helpful for you. Please study. You are only as successful as you are prepared in general, and I want for you success. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.